Hey everyone, welcome to this live stream. It's been so long since I've talked to you. Tonight we're talking about some really interesting things. Is my mic working? Are my grids on? I don't think so. We're going to be talking about some of my favorite whiskies of 2024, some of the gems, but also kind of working within those categories. A bunch of you grabbed the poster recently. We're going to talk about like people asking, well, what are some whiskies in the rich and round or the light and fruity? So I thought, well, that could be a way we could group it. So I'm going to talk about some of my favorite whiskies in all those categories. But really, overall, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your favorite whiskies are this year. And if you lean certain ways, I'll probably start a poll and see, how do we do it? I'll do that in a sec. But then what I want to do is I have figured out a way of doing infinity bottles that have made me start to do infinity bottles again. And I'm going to show you what I learned and what's really cool about it. And a great way, if you start to build a whiskey collection, a great way that you can kind of save your whiskey. So I've just set up, my kids have gone to bed. So it was all very loud. I literally walked through that door about a minute ago. So I'm very excited. So we've got a whiskey here and it doesn't seem there's any problems. Is this a first? Like, you guys can hear me. There's no grids on. Good to see you all. This is all. We have someone. And check this out. Look at this cool technology. You ready? That wasn't very cool, was it? Here we go. Oh no. Maybe it didn't work. Maybe not. I had a little camera that was going to be my little whiskey cam, but I didn't get time to like double check it just before I started the stream. Anyway, the whiskey I'm going to start with first is, let's just move that across because I guess I don't need that. I was going to pour just a starter dram. I often say when you're doing a tasting flight, if you're running a tasting, if you're drinking with some whiskey friends, well, you don't have to, it depends on how many whiskeys you're drinking, but I like to start with quite a sort of, neutral is the wrong word. I like to start a whiskey that kind of feels like home base. It's not too extreme in any way, because then I find it is then a comparison and it can bring the flavors out better later in the tasting. So I'm going to start with this one here. It is the Teeling Whiskey Single Malt, non-chill filtered, 46%. It's one that for some reason, I don't reach for this on the shelf. I don't know why, because there's nothing wrong with it. I want to put it in a Glencairn, but it is quite hot here. So for my first dram, I'm actually just going to put it on some ice. I just need to cool down. I'm like, it's hot. And I'm in New Zealand. This is not Scotland. So I'm going to have a little sip of that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go through... so we're going to talk about my favorite sort of light and fruity whiskey, my favorite rich and sherried whiskey, my favorite peaty and smoky, the sort of the grainy woody, and then what even is that? Does it even make sense? And then one of my favorite funky whiskies. And also, at the very end, gonna then reveal, and this is for the live stream only, I do have a Whiskey of the Year video coming up very soon. It's pretty much nearly done, and there's a whiskey that just arrived that I wanted to make my Whiskey of the Year. So I didn't shoot it. It's not in the Whiskey of the Year video. It's in this live stream. So by the end of this video, I'm going to reveal to you probably the whiskey I wanted to make my Whiskey of the Year. I'm not exactly sure because I've only just opened it. My first sip was great. But I'm trying to do this thing where like I can stream on TikTok too, and I don't know if it's working. And basically, yeah, if you watched to the end of this, I'll talk about probably my Whiskey of the Year. Maybe. I'm not sure. I will say, for those of you who can guess, it was one of the whiskies in a video I did last year, which was like the whiskies I want most in 2024. And I got it. I got the whiskey. Just a bit late. So we'll find out tonight. I'll find out whether I like it better. I'm not sure. Anyway, let's say hello to all you in the chat. The First Fill fam is all in. We can see a bunch of you are members to the channel as well with your little emojis. If you want to get my attention, at me, at First Fill Whiskey, because then it pops up. Because sometimes, like, when I'm just not a multitasker, eh? But so like the messages and stuff. If you want to talk to me, just at me. If you really want to get my attention and also support me doing live streams, well, then you can do a super chat, and that would be hugely appreciated. So anyway, I'm going to say hello to all of you. Nick Keane is in. Good to have you in. He is in New Zealand. Great to have you in. I'm actually heading up to Auckland soon, Nick. I'm moving out of here because this is not actually our place. This is my wife's family place, and we're going back to Auckland for a little while. So maybe we should do like an Auckland get-together, maybe. There's quite a few of you in Auckland. I really want to like find a pub or something in Auckland that will do a collab. I know there's that one in Northcote, which is like a Scottish pub. I wonder if they'll do a whiskey tasting. Maybe we'll work something out. We'll get maybe a get-together or something. And Big Bree is here. You're in Canada, right? Is that the right account? You're in Canada. So thanks for staying awake for this, to listen to a strange guy with a strange accent on a live stream. And I'm going to turn off TikTok. TikTok is no good. YouTube is better. Wouldn't you agree? Let's just, goodbye TikTok. Don't like you. Just go home. And we've got Noggin, trying hard not to open my bottle of Kilhoman Sinag. Kilhoman Sinag, as you all know, was my Whiskey of the Year for 2024. So, and a lot of you love that. I was a bit like unsure because I find a lot of other whiskey YouTubers don't talk about Kilhoman Sinag as much. There's a few that do. I find it's really a lot of you guys and a lot of people within the community that just absolutely love Kilhoman Sinag, and it's really cool to hear so many of you out there have been have bought it, have loved it, and honestly, it's still one of my absolute favorite go-to Isla smoky whiskies. Joseph is in, and Miranda's in too. Good to have you in. Two members from my Patreon, and also Miranda's very active on the Discord too. So good to have you in here on the stream too. And Joseph, good to have you in too. Half a die first Phil fans. Mr. Solder said, "Yo, hey Andrew, good to have you in as well." Both of you from Guam. Tater's in. Cheers, mate. And Simona's in. Glad I finally got that poster for you. There was for some reason the New Zealand delivery of the posters has been almost the slowest. So I'm glad we got that sorted, and I hope it looks great in your lounge and that you can sip drams over the summer and look at it. So just let me know. If any of you bought a poster and there's problems, just honestly let me know. Just DM me on Instagram, and honestly I want to sort it out because this has been a big learning curve for me. It's something I want to do more of, but I also want to make sure you guys like it. So, and we have, it has jumped. We've got someone in from Ukraine. Great to have you in. Whereabouts in Ukraine are you coming from? And Jason is in. Good to have you in, Jason, as always. And Reb is in as well. Good to have you in. Is the voice out of sync with the video? I don't know. Is it? I'm going to listen to myself. This is like one of my tricks. But I forgot, in my rush, I forgot my headphones. Let's see that. Is that synced? Seems a little bit out, but I think it will have to. We'll see. And so yeah, Newman said, hi Phil and all, having a bit of a British Lady Isla Barley 2013 here. Nice. That Isla Barley, it's such an interesting whiskey. And it's one of those whiskeys I found some people not really like and some people really like. It's real farmy. It's like quite a dry, for something that's kind of mainly ex-bourbon casks. It's a very dry whiskey. I found the vision I had, but I really liked it. It's something, as I got through, I enjoyed it more and more. So that's good. Good to have you sipping on that. Peter is in from Japan. Good to have you in. Postity, hey Phil and fam. And check that delay. Yeah, voice is slightly out of sync for me. Cool. Okay. What I can do is this. So I'll just go here and I can actually change the delay on this. So let's change that to 300. Close. Okay. How's that? Is that in sync now? Is that better? Are we in sync? Don't know. Good to have it. There's a lot of you from Asia Pacific, but it's very impressive. We've got some here from Spain. Where was that? Justo is in from Spain. Ben Demon Hunter is in, and all sorts of people. Tater Dom is in. Athen is in. Good to have you all in. Reb said it's 9:25 a.m. here. Matt Bullen is in. Hey Phil, you need clear ice, Matt. I do need clear ice. I'm just totally right. You need to show me how to do some clear ice. I know that what's that dude's name? He kind of reviews whiskey sometime. He did that video on like doing clear ice, and I was like, that's great. And then I looked at the process, and I was like, oh man, I need to buy some things. But clear ice would be great. There's something nice when if you're gonna have ice, have a big clear ice cube, especially in summer. Thing is, I just run really hot. Yeah, okay, cool. So maybe we'll start to jump in our next whiskey. And let's jump into the first whiskey, the things that have been standing out. So first of all, let's... I'm just going to bring this back. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about the highlights of 2024. I hope all of you have some highlights this year. There's definitely like it's been for me, it's been like feast or famine. It's been like really intense. It's been like quite quiet, and then it's kind of gone up and down. In terms of the whiskey, in terms of the YouTube channel, it's mainly been highlights this year. Going over to London for the IWSC. I know some of you were following along on Instagram, where I met up with Jeff from Jeff Whiskey, and that was really, really cool. And just kind of surreal to see my name on this big screen to be shortlisted for Whiskey Communication. When, I don't know, I'm like literally here by a beach in a random town in New Zealand, and then to suddenly end up there. So that was a highlight. It was a highlight meeting Charlie McLean. There's a video coming out, 2 videos actually, coming out very soon. And other highlights, had a lot of great whiskies this year. So let's start with the first one. We're going to start kind of following the categories of I found a lot of you bought the poster, the flavor tree, and then I had probably like 10 of you say, hey, can you give us some examples of what whiskeys you think fits in flavors, or which whiskeys kind of fit in multiple branches and stuff? So I'll kind of give you kind of whiskeys I really enjoyed this year, but kind of follow the theme of the different branches. If you don't know much about it, it was this thing here. You've probably already seen me talk about it. Rich and spice, fruit and floral, peat and smoke, wood and grain, heavy funk. So let's start with fruit and floral. That's kind of your citrus, orchard, floral, tropical. I talk about this a lot in terms of, that light and fruity and floral. Some of the classic whiskies I would say in that category: Arran 10, Glencadam 10, Deanston 12. For me tonight, I want to talk about this one here. It is the Lindors. This is one I feel like doesn't get talked about a lot. I'm not sure. I feel like there's this huge wave of new distilleries recently, and there's been so much noise that it's hard to kind of keep up with which distilleries are now releasing really good whiskies and which distilleries are they still, like, maybe some are not as good. This was one I was just too late to the party. Everyone was trying it like 4 years ago. I tried it only like a year ago, and I've been really enjoying it. It's that sort of light and fruity. The whole thing, the name of my one is called this is a hard name, MCDXCIV, and I think that refers to the year. I think it's Roman numerals for the year, 14. Oh, my brain. 14. It's in my History of Scotch video. It's about, like, basically the first recording of Scotch was when it was like this monk, it was like a report came into the king, and it was like the king was ordering whiskey, and he ordered 8 bowls of malt. And I think that was in Lindors. I think I have that story right. I'm sure some of you will correct me in the comments. And some people say that, yes, you can see a Ben Rowick. Hey, stop looking. Someone saw the Ben Rowick. That's cheating. You got to wait to the end of the stream. Andrew said, yes, Lindors is a great example of lowland Scotch. I agree. It's a really great example. Can we get this? It's still not working. I guess I can do this. Here you go. Lindors, 46%. Bourbon, sherry, wine barrique. I don't get so much of the wine barrique. It must be a very light influence. Most of all, I do get on that flavour tree those orchard fruits, those light fruits. And I guess why I think this is one of the highlights is it's something that every time I've sipped it, I've really enjoyed it. I've found the finish quite long. There's a lot of complexity going on. The ABV's at a good strength. And, some whiskies, it depends on the day. Like, some days I like it, and other days I don't like it. So, we have Macca is in Rodamar. Are you in Rodamar tonight? Awesome. That's a lake in New Zealand, by the way, for those who don't know. Good morning from Slovenia. Good to have you in. Yeah. I actually think I've been savouring this too long. I feel like it's aerated just a little bit. So this probably needs to go into that infinity bottle soon, which I'll show you soon in the stream. It's got that quite lemony. There's like an orange zest. It's very in that citrus. It's in the orchard fruit, and not so much tropical fruit, and it's got this maltiness, biscuitiness. And this is the thing. Someone was asking me, well, how does it work? Like, what happens if there's a whiskey that is in multiple categories? And, well, that's exciting. That's cool. So what you do is you start each time in the glass. So you got citrus. So what is that citrus? I said orange peel. So things I've probably already used. I've probably memorized this because I've gone through it before. I think there's marmalade there. And then the wooden grain, there's something there too. What is it? It's like, it's in that shortbread. It's something in that, between that and the pastries. There's something biscuity about it, and something nutty as well. So that's the thing. I did say, like, a lot of bourbons fit in that category, but not over. Like, there's a lot of crossover as well between flavor notes. So, yeah. So there you go. That was a good one. I do have a bonus one for you. But before I do that, I am going to start a poll. And the question is going to be, what do you prefer? And I'm going to write light, fruity, and floral. Rich, spiced. And how do I add more? Oh, yeah, here we go. Peaty and smoky. Just one more second. This is going to be a real exciting poll. Hang on. Funky, funky, heavy, and I'd kind of say that's sort of your chemical, earthy. I know that's kind of like when people say funky, heavy funk. People are like, what are you talking about? It is a very kind of like niche whiskey term. Let's do those. I might exclude the wood and grain one for now. So what do you prefer? This is like overall. I'll start that poll now. I'll be interested to see where you guys land. Like, are you like, I think Roy once said that he leans towards the ex-bourbon cast stuff, the second fill stuff. And then there's other people who lean towards the sherry bombs. I think was it Mac? No, Dave Swift. He loves Tamdhu and stuff. And then some people love their peat smoky. So I imagine, Nick Keane, maybe you're in that category. I'll be interested to see what you think. Did that poll even work? Awesome. Okay, that's running now. So now you can all vote on that. Awesome. Okay, so that's whiskey, and I actually got whiskey in London. I was in London and I was at a shop and I said, what whiskey should I take home with me? What's a good one? And it was actually an independent bottler. For those of you who don't know what independent bottlers are, basically they buy casks from a distillery and they bottle under their own name. And that's what these people do. This is from Cadenheads. And Cadenheads, they release all sorts of interesting whiskies. I've had some bottles have been fantastic, and then I've had some bottles which are I had one in like a Pinot cask, and I think it'd been matured the whole time. I wasn't that keen on it, but this one here, very keen on it, and it definitely fits in it. So it's not my whiskey of the year video because it's not a whiskey you guys all could get. But overall, I think in that category, light and fruity, I think it fits in. It probably is my favorite, to be honest. And it's this one here, the Glen Glasser. It's an 8-year-old. Let's see if we can get it's an 8-year-old at 46%. And this is stunning. I had another bottle of Glen Glasser. Am I saying that right? Glen Glasser. And it was great too. And I think recently they've changed the way they release, like the releases have changed. There's been a new bottle design. And I think there's been sort of a resurgence and interest in this distillery. So I'm just going to. But yeah, anyone here sipping anything tonight? Everyone ready? You bought your Christmas presents? Let's just go. It's 3:30 here. Son woke up crying. Oh no. Oh, I know that feeling. Good to have you here from Canada though. And good for any of you who are watching on the replay as well. Thanks for listening along. Dramfest will have Glen Glasser there. Can't wait to try the lineup. Awesome. Yeah, I will be at Dramfest. I will actually be doing a live stream from Dramfest. I got inspired by Uncut and Unfiltered. I think they did something at the Edinburgh Whiskey Festival. And so I went to the Dramfest team and I was just like, hey, do you reckon I could do a live stream? Because everyone's going to be there. And I'm going to try and talk to a lot of the guests there. Someone maybe I could interview some of these distillery owners I normally wouldn't get to talk to. And that's the problem being here in New Zealand, is I can't normally talk to these people at distilleries. So for those who don't know, Dramfest is a festival in New Zealand. I think it's the biggest whiskey festival in the Southern Hemisphere. I don't know. People come over from Australia for it. So anyway, it's crazy. Like, I think Dave Broom will be there this year. All sorts of people. And so let's jump into that Glen Glasser. I love this color as well, right? It just shows you good whiskey doesn't need to be a dark color. This is definitely a high, like, let's have another sip. Yeah, it's got that, it's similar to the Lindors, but less of that marmalade. it's more orchard fruit, your white fruit, apples, pears. Yeah, that's nice. I actually thought it was going to be drier on the nose, but on the palate, there's this little undertone of sweetness. Like, rather than just being citrusy, there's like orchard fruits, but not just that, like a really ripe apple. That's really good. It's a great dram. Cadenheads. And I forgot to say, when I was at Cadenheads, I was like, I have no room in my luggage to take bottles. And I just need something, there's like no room to take basically anything back. So I was like, out of your little bottles, which one should I get? I need something that's like less than 20 quid. So they gave me that. I bought that. Tim is in. Good morning. How are you? Good to have you in. And did I miss? Simon said picked up the Glenglass San End a few months ago. I've heard great things about that whiskey. I'd love to hear what you think about that. I guess really fundamentally, that is going to be very similar to this. I'm not sure what age the Sun End is, but I imagine it'll be very similar. And if it's anything like this, that will be a fantastic whiskey. I remember seeing it in New Zealand and I missed out grabbing one. So good work, Simone. That's awesome. Still want to buy my dad still need to buy my dad something for Christmas. Might get him a sample from the 70s from my local. They sell samples from the 70s at your local? Where's your local? Donna said, hi Phil, everyone, having a Ben Romick single bourbon cask, 59.3%. Well, we might see a Ben Romick later on in this video, so do hang around. So let's jump into the next category. Coming back to the poll now, if you haven't voted in the poll yet, go vote in the poll. It looks like it's peaty and smoky. People are leaning towards that. Makes sense. Rich and spiced. People also love their rich and spiced. I imagine they're the sort of people who'd like a Bunnahabhain 12, Glenallachie 12, Tamdhu. The numbers are moving around. Interesting stuff. I think the thing is with Scotch as well, especially I think for those in the US, like when you're the really unique flavor. And when I first got into whiskey, the first time I realized that you can have a spirit that tastes like smoke just blew my mind. So I still think it often is, and it often is a gateway for a lot of people. And I think as well, like often that smoke, because you kind of assume smoke bomb, like isn't it going to be really intense? But I think it's intense in the same way Marmite's intense. It doesn't mean that it's like it will take a while to warm up to it. It's just kind of like a palate thing. Because when I got into whiskey, I really didn't like the Craigellachie 13. Loved the Lafroig 10. Now I've warmed up to the Craigellachie 13, and I don't drink so much of the Lafroig 10. I definitely drink, more things like the Kilhome and Sinagin stuff, but yeah. Let's jump into that next one. So now we're going to jump into the rich and spice. So 28% of you like this category. This is your favorite category. So I'm glad we're going into something that even more of you will be interested in. I had a lot of highlights this year. One bottle. I need some ice. It's hot, man. One of the highlights was in another live stream I had with you guys, chatting to all of you about kind of the best whiskies on my shelf, right? So these are not whiskies. I'm not really thinking about budget. I'm just thinking of celebration whiskies. One also, and I promise these all won't be independent bottlers, so I'll go through this quick. But this distillery, when I was in London, I talked to a bunch of people who worked at Whiskey Exchange, Milroy's. I went to because on Instagram I asked all of you, I said, I'm going to London, which whiskey shops do I need to go to? Because when I lived there, I remember it being such a almost a mecca of where you can find great whiskey. I do genuinely think London is one of the best cities to shop for whiskey, just because it's an enormous city, and it's also on the same island as Scotland and all the distilleries. So they've just incredible access. especially Whiskey Exchange. Like walking through that shop at Whiskey Exchange just blew my mind. It was unreal. How do we get onto that? Oh, anyway, I think I had two. What I really wanted to do is I was talking to these people who worked there, or talking to people who, you could see they loved whiskey, but I was really trying to get behind it, get past like them being someone who works there and someone who loves whiskey. And so I was asking them questions like, well, what's the whiskey you always have on the shelf? What's your perma-shelf dram? What whiskey do you always go to? And I had two people tell me their whiskey they always went to, which surprised me, mainly because I haven't picked up many of these whiskies, was a Linkwood. And Linkwood is a distillery you can get a lot of through independent bottlers. And you can also get it outside of independent bottlers as well. I think it's in the Flora and Fauna range, I think. Is that right? But yeah, this one here. I had it in my last live stream, 8 p.m. in New Zealand. Bottled this one. It's by the Single Cask, and this is a Linkwood, 55.7%, and finished in our first fill. It's a pretty cool name, eh? First fill. FDC PX Octave. I'll show you a little close-up of that. Let's just turn me off. Here you go. All the info here. Can you see that? Have a little read of that. Fascinating stuff. Can you see that? And what I really like is this. They show the region. Pretty cool, eh? Single cask. 8 p.m. is a New Zealand kind of distributor of bottle store, online store. Yeah, and I think this was a gem. I won't have much. It is high strength. And I need to change glass. That's not a good idea. Here we go. So this being in a PX cask, and I know lots of you have watched my Sherry Explained video. You probably know about Sherry. If you don't, after this, go add that to your watch list. Find the time to watch it, because I think once you watch that, when you see words like PX, like Glen Scotia, I think their special release this year was a Pheno. If you don't know what PX is, you don't know what Pheno is, just knowing what those are and how they make a whiskey different through the way they mature in different types of sherry casks, it just makes it more fun. It's not that it doesn't mean everything. It doesn't mean oh, sorry. Switch the camera back. Sorry. There we go. We're back. I was just in the zone, all right? Thanks, Reb. Appreciate that. And yeah, so that's learning about the sherry casks. It seems kind of boring to learn about. I'll give you kind of a crash course. Overall, Oloroso, 90% of the casks out of Scotland, Asian sherry casks will be Oloroso. And it's something, the next most common will be PX, which is probably only 5%. That's your sweet, syrupy kind of sherry. So Oloroso I often find it's your spice, it's your nuts, it's your dried fruits. PX is turning up the dessert side of it, the syrup side of it. So on the flavour tree, I do find PX to be in that syrup, molasses, honey, maple, treacle, and that sort of thing. But we'll see what it does to a Linkwood, because Linkwood is known as a really nice spirit. Yeah, so good. Hi from Ukraine, Singapore. This is so cool. So many of you. I think I saw someone from Iceland as well. Game Crushers from Singapore. Anthony said I have a signature Linkwood. It's lovely. Amazing. I think Linkwood have just such a good... Tim hit the nail on the head. I think he's basically summed up my whole kind of thesis. Linkwood is magic when it's done right. And I think that's very true. Yeah. I kind of wish they would release whiskey. Imagine if they just had a regular release 8, 9, 10-year-old of 46% or something. It's just such great spirit. That nose already is so good. Definitely the PX sherry coming in on that. That rich, syrupy. And then there's it's almost dipping into the funk side. There's something savory going on here, like a mushroom. What is it? Something meaty. And there's that we're going a bit of the cereal part as well. Anyway, this is a single cask whiskey. You probably won't be able to get it. So what I want to talk to, and I don't want to sip too much of that, so because I want to get through some drams. Got to pace myself. And let's jump into the next whiskey. So back in that rich and... So what are we at now on the poll? We're at 28% for rich and spiced. So Peaty and Smoky is still winning out. For those... We use Springbank and Ben Romick lovers and Craig Gallagher lovers. Funky, heavy funky. Seems to be a bit low there. So let's go to our next rich whiskey that I really enjoyed this year. Now there's two, and so I'm going to move through these pretty quickly. Both of them stood out. So I released the World Whiskey video, and I've also got a video coming up, which is the Whiskey of the Year. I've separated my Whiskey of the Year videos. So the World Whiskey video is now out, and the Whiskey of the Year video will be coming out very soon. The reason I separated it was because when I started doing my list of Whiskey of the Year, a lot of the whiskies I liked this year were whiskies not from Scotland. And my whole channel's been like about Scotch, so that was kind of wild. So basically, I'm going to talk about a couple of whiskies here that probably not super available, but I really like. First is this one here. A lot of Kiwis are going nuts about it. It's the Go Liter from 1919, and this is also in a PX cask, and it's fantastic. The owner was a sailor. They use a cask. If you watch my New Zealand Australian video, the owner was a sailor, and they use a still, which is almost like a rum still. It's kind of based off the rum still at Mount Gay Distillery. Yeah, it's really nice. It's got this like real creaminess, the PX, the sweetness. It's like, what is that? It's like a what is it? It's on the top of my head. It's something like it's like a tart I had, some sort of vanilla tart. Anyway, it's a fantastic whiskey, but I won't talk about it long. Overall, I think for New Zealand whiskey, for them to release this at such a good price, like I think it's like $120 New Zealand, which must be like $60 US or something, or £60 or something like that, is amazing. To see good value, good specs like this, they've made this for enthusiasts, and also as well, like there are other distilleries out there. Like it's not just about making it for an enthusiast. There are other New Zealand and Australian whiskies. You know, like there's a lot of great Tasmanian whiskies, but also a lot that I find in those small casks can be very heavy on the tannins, which some people love. But this here, like the spirit is just good too. But let's jump on to the next one. And this one I also talked about, and then we'll jump onto our smoky whiskies, or 38% of you who are your peat and smoke heads. It's really nice. Really nice. I wish you guys could all get it. But we'll have to move on. Ash Palmer is in. I just talked about 8 p.m. We just mentioned 8 p.m. Good to have you on, Ash. Hope you're good. Leading up to Christmas. Okay, next whiskey. So what I was kind of saying is that, look, there's a lot of kind of whiskies in that sherry, that rich, that spiced category this year that stood out to me. There's a lot of classics, and these have always been classics. And I think, look, Burnhaven 12, Tamdu, always classics in that range. So sometimes the whiskies that I've enjoyed the most are ones I didn't expect to enjoy them from. And this one here is a whiskey that really surprised me that I liked, because my first sip of it, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't like it. And now I love it. And I've already talked about it. It's Morris. It's the musket barrels. Look, I think I did see some comments where some people from Aussie didn't like it as much, but then other people just love it. And I think, look, if you like port, if you drink port and you're used to port and that sort of thing, I think you'll like the Morris. It's just so different from your normal kind of sherry cask whiskey. It's much more raisiny. It has kind of this ice and sugar note. And every time I have this whiskey, so the first time I don't know what it is about this whiskey does weird things. Every time on the first sip of it, I'm like, that's intense. I'm not sure. And I have a sip. I'm like, okay. And it's almost like my palate has to get ready. And then that second time I sip it is always amazing. And I always want to go back to it. I don't know why. I think maybe it's just my palate kind of gets a shock of like how raisiny and different this is. Because maybe I'm going in thinking it's like a sherry cask. It's almost like brown almost rather than red. I'll give you a little close up as well. So those of you in Australia, this is an Australian whiskey, South Australia, just north of Melbourne, aged in some musket barrels, 46% unchill filtered natural colour. And this was a real discovery for me this year. Another one I wish you guys could get. But those of you in Australia, you got to keep an open mind. I think it's really great. I did see it in Whisky Exchange in London. Really nice whiskey. Okay, let's move on to the smoky whiskies. So this year, can I get my camera working? I'm just gonna, give me 5 seconds. I really want to I have a camera dedicated right here for showing you the bottles. And it's working. It's on. Look at that. How good. Do you see that? Look at this technology. All right. Oh, man. I was like so sad about that not working. Look. Isn't that better than my weird webcam? Let's get some more light on that. Yeah, look at that. So good. Okay. That's not actually the whiskey I'm drinking, by the way. Back to me. Okay, so smoky whiskies. I think for me, smoky has been an interesting one. I haven't discovered any whiskies that have beat kind of my classics. Honestly, I could have just got Kilchoman Sinag and put it up here and gone, okay, this is the whiskey to have. Waiheke whiskey, fantastic. I've tasted some of the new make from their new still. It is a level above. Like Alan Winchester, he helped out with, the new still and stuff, who was the head distiller at Glenlivet, is going to be on another level. The new make spirit is unreal. But I just don't want to keep talking about whiskies the majority of you in Iceland and Singapore can't get. So this one is a whiskey I went back to recently and I was like, oh yeah, I used to talk about this whiskey. Why am I not talking about it much anymore? It's actually from Islay and it is bottled at 48%. So I wonder how many of you will know which whiskey that is. And it's just a fantastic whiskey. And I think better than the main whiskey they release. I don't know if I would have said that when I first got into whiskey. I think if you gave me this and the main release they do, I would have preferred the main release. These days, without a doubt, I prefer this one. And I just think I keep forgetting about it. So let's jump in. What is it? It is going to be... I took it away with me. Let's see if that camera works. Yeah, look at that. Yeah. Isn't that so good? Look at that. Lagavulin 8. This is a whiskey I think I ignore. It's been on the shelf and I just forget how good it is. I think sometimes what happens is I get annoyed about how expensive Lagavulin 16 is and I forget about this 8. And I had a sip of it a couple of times over the last sort of month. And I was like, oh yeah, this is good. Let's have a sip. So, have you had the Lagavulin 8? What I like about it, so I guess what a lot of people like about the Lagavulin 16 is that it has this blend of ex-bourbon and ex-sherry casks, whereas this one, I believe, is just the ex-bourbon casks. Like, have a look at that color. Like, that is not got sherry cask influence. In fact, there's no coloring in it either, which is really cool. And I do believe the Lagavulin spirit style is just incredible. And I'm not drinking much of the Lagavulin 16 these days. I find it a bit light. I find it a little bit too expensive. But the 8, I still find fantastic. The memory association with this distillery is crazy. It's crazy when you sip it. And I'm there. When I got into whiskey, as a lot of you know, we had a mate coming over. I used to live in London. Had a mate come over and we're like, what should we do? Where should we go? And we're thinking, well, should we go like south of France or should we go to Iceland? And we landed on, let's go to the distilleries. But I wasn't into whiskey back then. And we went up to Speyside. Didn't really convert me. I was still thinking, don't really like whiskey. Went down to Islay, and it was Lafroig and Lagavulin that I was like, okay, there's something to the whiskey thing. I'd be interested to how you guys got into whiskey. Because whiskey does have a high barrier. Like, unless your parents sort of were into whiskey or something. Mine weren't. They don't even drink alcohol, which is weird. And I have this like whiskey channel, isn't it? That's so strange. So it's totally been like a discovery thing for me. Well, mainly my mate's dad, really, is kind of indirectly who got me into whiskey, I guess. Anyway, what I'm saying is when I smell this, I am back to the tasting room at Lagavulin. And I think there's more to... And I think that's a big thing about whiskey. We can get so analytical, which I love to do, to be honest. But there is this emotional side. There's something about smells that just take you back to a memory. And I think that's why it is hard for us to get over. I mean, maybe this is no good, but the nostalgia is strong, definitely. Anthony said Lagavulin 8 is on Amazon UK for £43. That's amazing. I remember in 2016, I saw the Lagavulin 16 for £43, and I was like, that's so cheap back then. So if you can get the 8 for 43, and I prefer the 8. I will say it doesn't have that kind of, it doesn't have the warmth of the sherry cask the 16 has. But to be honest, as I said in a video a while ago, Kilchoman St Aigers almost filled that role for me. If I want a smoky, but also got the warmth of those kind of sherry casks, Kilchoman St Aigers becoming that's kind of the new Lagavulin 16 for an enthusiast for me. Game Crusher said it went through YouTube at about 4 or 5 years. Exactly. And I was talking about this 4 years ago, and I have not talked about this for a while. And I feel like as someone on YouTube, and probably most whiskey YouTubers, we kind of have to think about this, is that we want to kind of show you something that's interesting and different and no one else is talking about. And I feel like 4 years ago, everyone was like, Lagavulin 8, so good. Have you tried it? And no one's really talking about it as much. I mean, people still are, but it's not kind of like 4 years ago, people going nuts for the Lagavulin 8. I think a big thing was that for them to release something with an age statement, because back then it was just when a lot of non-age statements were coming out, and then the Ardbeg 5 Wee Beastie came out, and it was really embracing a younger age statement. I mean, 8-year-old would be really old for a New Zealand whiskey, or most countries around the world, but for a Scot, and you can't really compare them. I wouldn't drink a 3-year-old Scotch, but I'd drink a 3-year-old Australian whiskey, for example. And it was cool to see them kind of like embracing that transparency, even though we don't see that as much from the rest of Diageo brands. It was good from this. So, anyone else had it? Joseph has become a member. Thanks for becoming a member. Cheers to you, Joseph. Joseph, and really appreciate you and all you've done for my channel. And yeah, appreciate it. Oh no, that's a member for 3 months. You're already a member. So he said, congrats, Festival Whiskey, on 54K subs. Thanks, Joseph. Appreciate it. Thank you for your virtual dram through your membership. In Singapore, the Lagavulin 8 and 16 are about $10 apart. Oh, okay. That's quite different to probably the person who said it was £43. What Phil's saying, that he won't drink 3-year-old scotch. What about Lindors? I don't believe that is 3-year-old scotch. I think it's just a no age statement. I don't think that would be all 3-year-old scotch. And Amy is in. Good to have you in, Amy. I have some of you might have met Amy through Discord, in the chats on live. I actually met Amy in Edinburgh. It was really cool. I did not have much time, honestly. I was so jet lagged. I was there. I basically flew from... This was when I got nominated for the award for the IWSC for the Spirits Communicator Award in London. So I went over to the UK, and Charlie McLean's sons, who were rowing across the Pacific. Crazy story. That video's coming out. It should release probably in the next few weeks. It's a wild story, so it'll be a great one to listen to over the kind of break. And it's a bit longer, but I think you'll really enjoy it. Anyway, their father is Charlie McLean, so I went up to Scotland, and in the morning, just before I met them, I quickly got a chance to meet Amy, and she showed me around the Johnny Walker Princess Street, which was awesome. I don't think she's working there anymore, but yeah, good to have you in, Amy. That was really cool. It was so surreal. Like, you caught me when I was like so jet lagged, and I was just like, where am I? I literally, it was probably like 40 hours ago because it's such a long trip. But, you know, like there's kiddos and Weka walking around my property, and suddenly I'm in Edinburgh, which was just wild. You know, native New Zealand birds to being in Edinburgh was kind of a weird sort of 48 hours. But it was great to see you, Amy. And so, for those of you who have just joined the stream, there's a lot of good stuff coming up. I've been going through kind of my favorite whiskies from each flavor category. So, I've been talking about, a lot of you have picked up the poster and have loved it and given me some great feedback. It's been something I've thought about so much because I feel like in so many of my videos, I've talked about like whiskey wheels and other kind of whiskey charts, and it's never been quite right. And I'm quite a visual person. So I did make this flavor tree because I've always talked about those 3 flavor categories. So really this video and what I've done with the poll is I want to see which of you kind of lean towards the different categories. Are you kind of a peat head? Are you someone who loves your sherry bombs? Do you like your kind of more spirit forward ex-bourbon casks? Do you like the funky kind of Campbelltown whiskies? Or you know, where do you lean? And that's kind of how this is based. And basically it's more like a flow chart. You go up and it kind of suggests to you flavors. So that's kind of, if you're just joining, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about my favorite whiskies, my highlights and my favorite whiskies of this year. And yeah, if any of you bought the poster, you had any issues, let me know. Very keen to fix it as soon as possible, but it's so cool to hear that it's hanging up in distilleries as well now. I've had quite a few distilleries buy it, and it's hanging up in bars and then just in people's lounges and even bedrooms. It's very cool. I did have an A3, which I released, but I found some of the prints, the text was a little bit hard to read. So a lot of you said it was fine, but I didn't want to, I don't know. I just want to make it good. I'm going to release more other versions that will come out soon. So, so let's jump into the next category then. So we're going to jump into which is actually not on the poll. This is kind of your malty, or what I like to call the wooden grain. And I think if you're getting into whiskey, it's so confusing. You see all these different bottles, but I think if you can just understand the 5 categories, if you have a bottle from each category, then you'll be like, kind of a light bulb turns on and you're like, this is how it can be quite different. And then you're sort of like, should I go down this lane? Should I go down that peaty and smoky lane? Should I go down the rich spiced lane? Should I go down the light fruity and floral lane? Or should I go down the wood and grain lane? Someone before just mentioned they had the British Isla Barley, which is something that it's an interesting one, right? Because it's in an ex-bourbon cask, but I wouldn't say it's that kind of sweet, fruity. It's more kind of in your sort of grainy category and kind of the funky category being the farmy category. So, let's talk about our wood and grain. So, the next whiskey, wherever it is. Okay, this one's interesting. This whiskey is the whiskey that I am losing my place. There was one special mention actually for Peaty and Smoky I forgot to mention. And it is this one here. I don't want to mention it for long. It was actually in my World Whiskey of the Year video, but it just ended up being too long and I knew most of you can't get it. But it is the Thompson Peat single cask. Is that frozen? That's not working. Okay. So the Thompson Peat single cask, which is really interesting. I find it's one of the only whiskies I've ever had that has given me this sort of... does this sound bad to say? Almost like KFC. But in a good way. It's like that sort of like fried chicken sort of smokiness, which is so different to other whiskies. Sorry, I haven't turned on that camera again. Here we go. So different from Isla whiskey. So that's the peat smoke from Thompson. Anyway, again, I know a lot of you can't get it, but it's just one I wanted to kind of special mention. Let's jump over to the multi. So this next whiskey is in that kind of wood and grain category. And I did say in my other videos that the reason originally I just wanted 3 categories, and then I felt like, okay. A lot of you even commented on my videos saying, I would talk about the 3 gateways of Scotch, and a lot of you were like, what about Craig Ellachie? That's not a light and fruity whiskey. That's like a heavy whiskey, but it doesn't fit in any of those others. So then I added like the heavy funk, that sort of side, and then the bourbon people, what about the brown sugar? What about the bacon notes? What about that sort of nuttiness you get in a lot of bourbons? But also in Scotches. Deanston, I find, is a very kind of malty cereal whiskey. So what about that category? So again, with the flavour tree, most whiskies will share multiple branches. It's just like a whiskey wheel. It's just visually shown in a different way. This one here, when I was doing that video, that kind of fun video where I reacted to TJ from Bruzel, who's like he's like the biggest whiskey YouTuber now, and he reviews bourbon. He makes great videos. They're super fun, but he doesn't like Scotch. Anyway, I was watching a bunch of his videos, and he kept saying, no one can find this whiskey. And he was walking down these like aisles in these big shops, and he was like, oh, there's a Springbank. There's a Springbank. There's a Spring... he's seen Springbanks. But he was saying how hard it was to find this whiskey. I don't know what it is. In New Zealand, it is hard to find a Springbank. It is not hard to find this whiskey. In the US, it seems like he can just walk up to a store, find a Springbank, and he can't find this one. So, what is it going to be? It's not one that was in my top kind of bourbons for a Scotch lover. Because I think, probably a lot of you assumed I wouldn't be able to get it. But I could get it. What is it going to be? Is my camera going to work? It is still frozen. If I turn it off. The suspense. What do you think? Here we go. No. Okay, is that working? Okay, let's try again. Hello. Good. Okay. It is this one here. Wala Special Reserve. It is bottled at, it's a wheated bourbon, 45%. And it's a bourbon. So, classic bourbon notes. What are you going to get? Your baking spices. Let's find out. Any of you had the Wala before? But do you know why I'm talking about this though? As you know, people who watch this channel, this is a screw cap. And this is meant to be like, this is like the fancy stuff. This is like the Springbank kind of bourbon. And look at that. There is a screw cap. To be fair, actually kind of a cheap screw. Like that's actually not a... The Japanese know how to do a good screw cap. That's kind of not great, to be honest. Well, I think you can up your game on that. Look, I like the fact you're doing a screw cap, but I think you could do a better screw cap than that. Yeah, weird. Anyway, let's jump in. Will I even like it? Everyone was like... So there's one video where Bruiser was like walking down a stop and I cannot talk tonight. He's walking through a shop, and he saw a couple of these, the Wala Special Reserve, and he's like, I need to buy them and gift them to people because I normally can't get them, but I can get them. So let's find out if it's any good. Are all of you in the US asleep? Is there anyone in the US for the stream? Probably a lot of you will be watching on the replay. Okay, here we go. Now, I did say this video was about like my sort of favorites of 2024. And this is not really in this category because it's not my favorite. I just picked it up recently and it wasn't in my video. And so this seems to be the thing that everybody wanted. But a lot of you, someone just said it's the other Wallas are quite good. That's bottom shelf Walla. Okay, it's bottom shelf Walla, apparently. I didn't want to say it, but I was like, I think I like the Knob Creek more than that. Stupidly priced it. Was it stupidly? I think mine was like I think it was like 100. I don't think it was that bad for me. Which is why I grabbed it. But in that wooden grain, you're getting a lot of nuttiness, coconut, maybe hazelnut, almond. Thanks, Andrew. Andrew has given me a virtual dram for $20 US. Cheers, mate. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your virtual dram. Cheers to you. Great to have you on. This is fun. I've really enjoyed being here, talking to all of you, and you giving me that virtual dram is something that kind of helps this channel. Like, I'm not a big... You said you're going to head out for dinner. Congrats again for the IWSC. Great. Enjoy your dinner, Andrew. Great to have you in. And it's people like you that really keep this channel going through your super chats and stuff, because the people who I was up against at the IWSC for Spirits Communicator of the Year, like they work for magazines and companies, and I'm just literally some dude who likes whiskey in this random room, and it's you guys who've put me where I am. It's you guys who've been watching, and it's people like you, Andrew. So cheers to you. Thanks for your virtual dram, and enjoy your dinner. It's very sweet, the Walla. I don't mind it. Look, it's very drinkable. And I'm getting a lot more of those. So wooden grain, baking spices, yep. Vanilla, yep. Brown sugar. There's something rich and spiced. What do we got? Burnt sugar, yep. Brown sugar. Maple. So yeah, definitely in that syrup side too. I think that's the two branches this sits in. Is there anything anywhere else? Not really. You could argue there's maybe some plum in that, but it's faint. Anyway, the whiskey I did want to talk about in this section was actually the Deanston 12. And for you guys only in the live stream, it's actually something that might be in my Whiskey of the Year video. Maybe. Might not be the top one. Or maybe it is. I don't know. So I didn't want to talk about it tonight. But I just did. So there you go. You have got a secret reveal. I think that's a whiskey that people are not talking about much recently. The Deanston 12. So it is just 3 years old. Okay. Well, Lindors have done a great job. I think that's probably got to do with STR casks then. Reb just said he just Googled Lindors and said it is 3 years old. That is crazy good for 3 years old. There's no way. That's crazy. But they've been around for so long. Okay, let's jump to the next whiskey that I think... but before I jump to the funky and kind of heavy, those chemical, the whiskies that win the online Scotch Whisky Awards, your Springbanks, your the whiskies that like whiskey enthusiasts go nuts over, I want to talk about an experiment I've been doing, and I teased this at the start of the video, about maybe a better way to do infinity bottles. So I've been doing infinity bottles. The problem is I have a lot of whiskies and it gets to the bottom, like the Lindors, and I do feel like it starts to get aerated, and that last kind of fifth is not as good as the rest of it, or the last sixth, you know. And normally what I would say is put it into a smaller bottle. So I've been putting whiskies into this, just kind of like not really thinking about it, just putting it into this kind of infinity bottle, you know. But then what I found is I wasn't drinking my infinity bottle. What was the point? Like, this is pointless. So then what I started doing is actually making infinity bottles based off flavour. And so what I've done now, and now I'm reaching for these a lot, because I find the reason, I was thinking about, why am I not liking my infinity bottle? Why am I not reaching it? Because it's not bad. Like, there are great whiskies in this. But the thing is, I think we forget about the mood and how that kind of relates to drinking whiskey. Sometimes we want something light and fruity. Sometimes we want something peaty and smoky. So I think the way to do infinity bottles that I've learned, and this is going to look terrible because I needed bottles with screw caps. I didn't want to use corks for an infinity bottle that could be around longer than most bottles. So I've done a smoke infinity. This is just smoky whiskies. And then what you do is you record it and like had a notebook. So anytime I add a whiskey to it, so in this one here, this one has the Loch Gorm, Kilchoman Loch Gorm, the last little bit of it. It has some Port Charlotte 10. It has some Lafroig quarter cask, and it has some Lag wine charred cask, batch 3. All whiskies I love, but they were just so low, and I was sitting there for so long. I was worried that they were going to get aerated, and I didn't have enough little bottles to. And I thought, well, okay, I'm at the last little bit. The problem is, it's like, I don't know what you're like when you go out and you buy pizza, and you don't have everyone around, and everyone has some pizza, and there's always like one piece left. I don't know if this is a New Zealand thing. Maybe other cultures don't do this. Every time in New Zealand, you have pizza with friends, and everyone's too polite to have that last piece. And I feel like it's kind of similar with whiskey. I never want to finish the bottle. Whereas now I'm like, well, it's not. There's just something easy about putting it into a infinity bottle because it's not truly gone. So, this is my smoky infinity. Then I have a light and fruity, which is from a old Waiheke bottle. They use screw caps. So this is my light and fruity. This one had, let's have a look. This one had, I'm pretty sure, some of the Glenlivet illicit still. It had, It had some Glenkinchie in it. The Glenglasser 9 wine cask. Had Altmore 12, Speyburn 15, and a Loch Lomond 12. So all kind of things that overall, generally, I'd put in that light and fruity category. There's exceptions to the rule, but... And then we take that further, there's my funky Infinity. This is like Craig Gallagher's. It has some long row. It has Ben Romick in it. And then we have my Infinity Rich and Round, which is an extremely old bottle of Pimm's. I need to probably get better bottles for these, but I'll figure out that later. So there you go. If you're going to make infinity bottles, I think the way for me to actually use them practically is go by flavour profile. Nick Keane said, my peated infinity bottle now has 66 different whiskies in it. I track it with spreadsheets rather than a notebook. That is a good idea. I need to talk to you. I need to find a way to track it properly. That's a great idea. I think there could be a real fun way to do this. I think for me, a big realization is, like, don't just chuck it in a random bottle. Go by flavour profile, because some nights you won't want a smoky whiskey. And have I missed any comments from you? Hamo said, late to the party, but hi, and great to see you live from Oz. Great to have you in, Hamo. Joseph said, what scotch would you recommend for a die-hard bourbon bro? I'm trying to convert mine, but they're resistant to the truth of the superior spirit of scotch. The video I did, which was on best... the one where Jeff and I reacted to Bruzel. I had some great recommendations from all of you who commented on that video saying, this is what Bruzel should try. And I think even the things Jeff and I recommended probably weren't as good as some of your comments. I think we figured out that a lot of the bourbon profile is a very sweet profile. Generally, not always, but it's quite sweet. I think a PX cask whiskey could be the way to go. So I'd say even the Glendronach, maybe 12, because it's a blend of Oloroso and PX. I think... yeah, anything in that. I think something like the Arran kind of Amarona cask could be really interesting. That's a very sweet whiskey, has this kind of richness on top. I'm trying to think, is there something malty that's sweet as well? There's not a Balvenie kind of PX cask. Tim M said, hardcore funk convert these days, Kieran for the win. We might have something coming up that might be from a distillery similar to that. Okay, let's get into the heavy funk. So on the poll, if you haven't voted yet, 173 votes, light and fruity. It looks like Peaty and Smoky has won, 41%. Yeah, it's good. Peaty and Smoky whiskey. There's nothing else like it. There's nothing else. So, funky heavy though. The enthusiast whiskey. Your Springbanks, your Campbelltowns, 12%. But we're going to move on to that. It's done very well at the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. As you know, Springbank has won Distillery of the Year all the time, all that sort of thing. Let's move on to what were my picks for the kind of heavy and funk category. First one, as I've teased, is a Ben Romick. So I just finished my last cask strength whiskey, which is now in my infinity bottle. And we've got a new one. This one here is the Ben Romick Distilled 2014 cask strength batch 3. And is my cool camera going to work? I don't think so. Is it? I wonder if... might be like a heating thing. I will show you this. Here we go. And 1, 2, 3. Here we go. There we go. Look at that. Here we go. Ben Romick Distilled 2014 cask strength batch 03. Just gonna I really like Ben Romick. This one is 60.6%, which is actually a higher percentage than the last Ben Romick I had. Highland Hamish has gifted $6.31. Greetings from Inverness. Hope everyone is looking forward to some great drammies over the festive period. Great to have you in, Hamish. Thank you for your virtual dram. And great to have someone from Inverness as well in Scotland. So thank you so much. Let's open this. This is unopened. So the last bottle I had may or may not feature in my Whiskey of the Year video, which is why I need a new release. Can't open it. This is the first time I've tried this. Is it as good as the last release? Because the last cast strength I had from Ben Romick is really good. This is what often people call the whiskey, the distillery, the Springbank of Speyside is what people call it, because it's the heavy, the funky. I often find there's a lot of that rich and spiced in it as well. This is the first time and what I love about this is that Ben Romick traditionally is released at 43%. This here is 60.6%. This is full power. So often the critique is like, I just wish it was 46%. But as G Whiskey said in a video I did with him, it's actually one of the best 43% whiskies because of the intensity of the spirit. I'm sure lots of you, probably in the comments here, love the Ben Romick cast strength. It is just a fantastic whiskey. And out of all the whiskies this year that I have bought in my collection, Ben Romick Distillery has been the one I have bought the most releases of. And out of all the whiskies, including the 21-year-old, I like this one the best. Well, the previous batch. Who knows about this batch? And yeah, and it's more available than your Springbanks, your Kilkerrans. Oh yeah, that's nice. You're getting this kind of interesting. Even between batches, this time I'm getting more. It's like that sort of there's something like that Portuguese tart. What do they call it? Where's Drummond? What's it called? That kind of lemon tart thing on the nose. You're getting that dark chocolate, the berries. Oh yeah. It's so good. It's just a classic. Honestly, if someone came into here and, you know, they had to take away all my whiskies except 5 whiskies, I think Ben Romick cast strength might be one of those whiskies that I would say, you know, if I could only have 5 whiskies, this might be one of those. The finish is so long. It's got this like slightly sulfury note, but in a good way, like a burnt match. So I definitely think on the flavour tree, it's that kind of rich and spiced, and it's that heavy funk for me personally. I mean, it'd be interesting for you. I think there's probably some of the meaty. There's something meaty in it too. Yeah, that's nice. That's good. I do have one more whiskey though. That's really nice. I can see why so many people do so well. Okay, let's see what then you got your last. I'm going to leave the poll up for another 5 minutes. Then I'll close the poll and we'll see what the final votes are for your favourite style of whiskey. Tim said, hardcore funk convert these days. That's the thing. And I find with most people, as you're going down your whiskey journey, we go through these different kind of gateways. You're kind of, some people get in through like an Aberlour 12 and Aberlour A'bunadh. Maybe not Aberlour A'bunadh, but a lot of people get into that quite quickly, surprisingly. The Glenallachie 12, Tamdhu 12, your peaty and smoky, your light kind of whiskies, starting at Glenmorangie 10, ending up at Ardnamurchan, Glencadam, Deanston and stuff. But I find most people, a lot of people end up in this kind of heavy funk lane where their favourite whiskies are a Ben Romick, a Craigellachie, Springbank, and this next distillery. So let's see what that is. That's great. I really want to have more of it, but too much whiskey for one stream. Okay, so the next whiskey on the list, this one here is a whiskey I've been trying to find for a long time. I did a whole video on like whiskies I was hunting that I wanted. I finally got a bottle. It's actually my birthday in a couple of days, and I'm opening this, and I am opening this bottle a little bit early. Probably shouldn't. It's also why I haven't been able to include this in my Whiskey of the Year video. But it's going to be... My camera's still working? Cool. This one here. Kilkerran Sherry Cask, 8-year-old cask strength. Did anyone... This is a banger of a whiskey. I had one tiny sip, but I really like the 12-year-old. The Kilkerran 12-year-old won the online Scotch Whisky Awards this year, and I thought, well, this is going to be a dram worth trying. So we're going to finish on to this. We're going to finish with this. Boom. So Kilkerran 12, a lot of you know it. That's kind of the one you can find. It is kind of like in between kind of a Ben Romick and Springbank in terms of availability. Springbank is kind of hard to find. Ben Romick you can normally find. Kilkerran's kind of somewhere in between because it has the same owners as Springbank. And I'm pretty sure I just said Kilkerran Distillery. It's not. It's from Glengyle. It's like a different name. And this one is sherry cask matured, 57.4%. So has that... one of you was talking about that sort of Campbelltown funk and stuff, and how like you're a convert, and yeah, it comes out in batches, non-chill filtered, no added colouring. I can't see a batch number. I thought it had batch numbers. Don't know. And yeah, as you can see, that is non-chill filtered, no added colouring, 57.4%. This is probably the most understated label that I almost think it's on purpose. Like it almost looks like someone has made this on Word. Like the design is so basic, but maybe it's intentional. But the whiskey, oh yeah, wow, interesting. I'm getting like a there's like a really, there's the funk, there's the kind of heaviness, but there's the sweetness coming through the nose that's actually tropical. What is that? It's like passion fruit. It's passion fruit. Definitely passion fruit. You know the seeds in if you've ever had a passion fruit and you have like the seeds, and that there's so much of that on the nose. So different sort of tropical notes than I'd get from, say, a Indian whiskey. I think maybe that being an 8-year-old. I don't normally get... Let's go for the... Oh yeah, that is good. Not as much tropical on the palate. A lot more on the nose. You're definitely getting some of that sherry cask coming in. The richness, dark flavours, chocolate, heavy, industrial. There's something oily there. Savoury. There's a lot going on here, actually. Let's go one more. There's a lot going on. There's something farmy. Is it farmy? It's almost like something that's overripe, especially in the fruit. There's a fruit side to it, which has kind of surprised me. Almost that it's like so overripe. Very intense whiskey, very strong. Probably not one I'd ever give to a beginner or ever, like, even for me personally. I don't know how much I'd reach for this because it's very intense, but if you want something really intense, this is a fascinating whiskey. I can see why so many people like it. Peaty Whiskies Society said, hell yes, many of us in the club brought it when Whiskey Galore released it. Yeah, so Whiskey Galore sells this if you want to get a bottle of it, and how good. Happy birthday. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Peter. I have like a birthday near Christmas, which is always like, life's always intense on the lead up to Christmas. So having this dram with you, sipping these whiskies, it's been great. This is the best way to open this whiskey outside of just like sharing it with friends, which I will, but post-Christmas when people are less busy. Kilkerran 8 batch 2021, some might shy away from it due to the pure sulfuric notes hitting the face. Is there sulfuric on this? And then Nick Keane said 2021 was his favourite. So the thing about sulfuric, right, in wine often that's seen as a negative note, but in Benromic, I see that as kind of a nice, I like the burnt match. What do we got on the flavour tree? I like the, that geothermal, the almost Brussels sprouts. Yeah, that's a great whiskey. Absolutely fantastic. Now, let's close that poll. So, okay, at the end of the poll, we're closing the poll and that was, looks like Smoky won out. So most of you in the chat have been the Smoky and Peaty lovers. Fantastic. There's a lot of comments I've missed. If you want to talk to me, as I said again, just at me. And I'm going to talk about another whiskey, which is, let's try the heavy funk, right? So in that heavy funk lane, let's see what that infinity kind of heavy funk lane. But also a Q&A, if any of you have a question for me, I'll stay on for another 5 to 10 minutes if you have a question for me, and then we'll like wrap up. So in this bottle has the Benromic Sherry Peat Smoke, which was my like ultimate winter whiskey. It has a Benromic 21, a Long Row 11 port, and a Benrinnes 15. So this is my infinity bottle, as I was talking about before. Oh, whoa. That's like, really kind of, what is that? It's kind of a, an onion, savory. Mau Karabor said, I'm all for smoky, not a fan of peaty, the herbal medicinal. Interesting. So you like the smoke. You might like, I'll be interested to what you think about some of the distilleries around the world who are doing smoky whiskey that's not peated, like Cairo in Finland, Thompson in New Zealand using Manuka smoke. Hamo said, sorry, joined late. Did you have a favorite world whiskey, Australia and New Zealand category? Honestly, I think my favorite world whiskey, well, obviously Cotswolds, incredible English whiskey. But if you wanted something that was kind of outside of the UK, Cotswolds is incredible. Archie Rose is incredible. I see someone's just mentioned it. I gotta say, I really like the Morris. I don't know. I really like the Morris from Australia. That's not it. And the musket barrels. Just that raisiny note. It's really fantastic. Reb said, what's your favourite peated PX sherry cask single malt? Pretty sure Kilhoman did a peated whiskey. That was some PX cask. That is a great question. I don't know. I'm not sure, Reb. Anyway, it's been an absolute blast chatting to you. It's been really great. I've really enjoyed the stream talking to you. I hope you all have a great Christmas. I've really enjoyed going through these whiskies. If you haven't got yourself the flavour tree yet, the different categories that we went through tonight, you can pick that up and on my Etsy link in the description. And thank you so much for your virtual drams tonight. Thank you to all of you from around the world who've been commenting. It's been so cool. I've just enjoyed hanging out with you again. It's been awesome. Joseph, thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, Phil. Your channel and fam have grown so much in quantity and subs and quality this year. Thank you for your creativity, content, and community. Other than Jeff, who else on YouTube should we watch? Cheers, Joseph. Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. Thank you for your virtual dram. Really appreciate that. And I really hope all of you have a great Christmas. I hope you try some great whiskies this festive season. What are you trying? Anything? And yeah, it's been really good. Really good to what did someone say? Does it smell like Gordon's? I did rinse it out. I did rinse it out, Faz. So it doesn't... I don't think so. Maybe I should do some merch, which is actually... We'll talk about that later. Anyway, don't forget to like the video, subscribe. Thank you, Himo. And if you enjoyed this, look out for my Whiskey of the Year video coming up. Jeff is in. Happy honey holidays. Are you hoarding your honey holder, Jeff? I see Jeff's in again. We've got a video coming out where we explore some of the best kind of shops around London. It was an intense day. I was so jet lagged. I'm surprised Jeff just didn't walk off at some point. Tried Scapegrace, Anthem, and Vanguard. Wow. I need to try more Scapegrace, definitely. I've tried a few little bits. But I think Scapegrace's history is they bought stock from a different distillery with small casks. But I know they got the new still, which I'm super excited about. I love the location. I think Scapegrace is going to be one of those distilleries that I'll be recommending to you to visit in future. But yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you for your virtual dram. Cheers. I definitely need to try more Scapegrace whiskies. Thank you, Joseph. I should have been clicking on these. And thank you, Joseph, again. Thank you so much. Anyway, happy holidays. Have a good Christmas. Great to talk to you. Great to chat to you in long form and not my just short videos. Good to have you all in. And yeah, share and enjoy. Beauty.